My name is Victor Fuhrman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. 21 years ago, I was teaching a class called EnerVision. The class was designed to help those in attendance identify how they sense the human energy field, or aura. Some would feel and some would see, depending on which of the clairs or methods of sensing they were open to. During the class, my dear friend Jill Bauman took a series of photos with a conventional 35mm camera in ambient light. When developed, one of those photos showed something unexpected. While meditating and focusing on projecting my energy outward, there appeared to be a golden light surrounding me, emanating from my heart center. Had that photo captured my aura? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Christina Lonsdale, has been dubbed the Annie Leibovitz of aura photographers by the New York Times. Christina Lonsdale has created more than 45,000 aura portraits, images she produces with a special camera, the AuraCam 6000, and an immersive experience to capture a tangible image of forces just beyond human perception. She came to prominence through her photography project, Radiant Human, in which she utilizes the AuraCam 6000 to explore the connection between energy and identity, a discipline that she believes bridges New Age discovery and new media selfie actualization. Her analytical abilities have earned her residencies at the Whitney Museum of American Art, as well as coverage in numerous top publications including Vanity Fair, Vogue, and Domino. Her website is radianthuman.com, and she joins me this week to share her path and her new book, Radiant Human: Discover the Connection Between Color, Identity, and Energy. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Christina Lonsdale. Welcome, Christina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us. And before we start, I know our viewers can't see what I'm looking at right now, but I have a copy of your book here, and it is absolutely beautiful and filled with your analysis and your amazing aura photos. Thank you so much for this book.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. I'm happy that it's out in physical form.
And as you said, it takes a village, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of really great people were behind this book. It wasn't just me. It was a group effort for sure.
Wonderful. So in the introduction to Radiant Human, you share that the New Age movement is part of your family's DNA. Please share with our listeners your early path and how it shaped your life.
Well, that's a really good question. I think that this is a great place to start, and it gives absolute foundation to the book. My parents met because of a goat named Foxy Lady. So I think that just kind of sets the tone there. My mom was hitchhiking in the 60s, stopped in New Mexico, and realized that hitchhiking with a goat probably wasn't a good idea. So she stopped at my dad's commune, named Lorien, which is named after an elf village in Lord of the Rings. So that's my dad's personality. So she tried to sell the goat to my dad, and I don't think he wanted the goat, but he was happy to have my mom at the commune. So things kind of went from there, and they ended up with 2 daughters and a goat herd and some chickens. That would probably best describe the foundation of my upbringing. There was a really great community there, still is. The commune is still in existence. My mom still lives there. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary. So great collection of people there.
That's wonderful. And what were some of the things that they imparted to you as you were growing up?
Oh, gosh, so much. I mean, as much as I hated it growing up as a teenager, organic food and like healthy, home cooked meals, definitely. I remember having just a tear-filled tantrum, wanting white bread, yellow mustard, American cheese, bologna sandwich. That's what I wanted to take to school. I didn't want to have any brown rice or tofu or, it was just complete. I just could not understand that they were doing things another way. So now I'm a mother and I'm feeding my daughter tofu and brown rice and definitely seeing that the tables have turned. So it's a pretty remarkable time to look back on.
And from a sense of spirituality and energy, what did you learn from them?
Oh, well, I've been really lucky in the sense that both my parents are incredible communicators, really open-minded and very supportive of my independence and my individuality. And the way that they supported me early on was explaining that religion was really similar to language in the sense that you had a lot of different words to describe the same thing. You could say there's many different languages that describe what a door is. There's many different languages that describe what God is. And so every religion is just a different explanation of the same source. So I grew up in a very kind of fluid household. It was mostly Christian, Hindu, and Buddhist. So it was kind of everyone took a little here, a little there, and made it work for what suited them. So I'm really grateful for that in the sense that I feel pretty familiar with most religions and I don't feel divided at all, which I think is kind of the saddest part, is that division.
So you had a real interfaith upbringing.
Yeah, interfaith is a great way to put it, yes.
Absolutely. And from a standpoint of the subtle energy, did you have any learning from them about that?
Yeah, I did, and I think I'm knowing more now. It's interesting, very similar to the pain of not having your mother understand that you wanted a white bread bologna sandwich. I also didn't understand her morning meditations. It was like just so hard for me to understand that she needed her alone time. And I'm now, as my own mom, I'm realizing that it's those boundaries, it's that space that you hold for yourself and your practice that really supports you to be the best that you can be throughout the day. So it's really interesting how I think boundary setting is kind of scary for a lot of energetically sensitive people, but also incredibly necessary if you're going to show up the way that you want to be in the world.
Absolutely. How important is an understanding of the inner and outer subtle energy we share, and how does it shape our relationships with ourselves and with others?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think it really, you hit the nail on the head with how that affects others. I think that especially now we're realizing how much the subtleties, right? A text message versus a phone call can make the difference in somebody's mood, in somebody's understanding of a relationship, in their understanding of, their job security. It's just so important to take time and really dedicate yourself to those subtleties. Otherwise, there's a lot that can kind of go awry. What I found so interesting in aura photography is that you're not just one color, you're many colors. And it's those subtleties within those colors and how they relate to each other that really illuminate your own individuality and kind of how those kind of key players as far as energy goes really work together to create a unique you. And so it's really about getting to know your inner quarks. It's about getting to know, are you a text person or are you a phone call person? And if you're a phone call person, do other people in your life know that about you? Because that's where a lot of misunderstandings happen, is when you kind of expect other people to know your inner quarks, or maybe you don't know your inner quarks and you're expecting other people to know them for you. So I've found that when you're doing a personal practice or when you're on the path of self-discovery and you're interacting with, ways of perceiving yourself like aura photography, you can really gain a lot by engaging in those subtleties.
So cyberspace and digital communication has really changed the way we perceive one another.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? Yes and no. I feel like we are still fundamentally human. And really what I love about Radiant Human is about paying homage to the humanity of it all through a digital space. Meaning, what I love about aura photography is that this is authentically you. You don't choose what color is going to come out of the camera. It matches a color to your energy. So you have to be authentic. There's no other way. You can't fake it. You can't fake your energy. So what this does is it visualizes this for you. So it becomes a part of the digital space.
What is the synergy that you've experienced between the new age and the internet age?
Well, I think Radiant Human is definitely that synergy. I think you are combining some really interesting things. I mean, the Oricam 6000 was invented in the 1970s by a man named Guy Coggins. He created an algorithm. Now, this is really interesting. Algorithm wasn't really in our consciousness. It really wasn't in our awareness until Instagram happened. Then all of a sudden we became more and more aware of what an algorithm actually is. But this has been around for a really long time. And what Guy Coggins did was he created an algorithm that matches the wavelength of your body's energy to the wavelength of a color. And then that color comes out as a second exposure on a photograph of you. So in a sense, this is an interactive algorithm that connects color and energy. Now, what Radiant Human does is it takes this a step further and discovers kind of how identity plays into this. And so far what I've been doing is photographing as many people as I possibly can. I'm at 45,000 images, and I found incredible consistencies with how people relate to the colors that they're creating with this camera. For example, red is a coloration that I get a lot for people that are going through change. Now, it's really interesting to see that either they can be going through a change like pregnancy, or they can go through a change like job loss. Either way, usually they're red. Now, what I find is so fantastic is that these people are broadcasting their state of existence. You know what I mean? They're what is going on for them. And so this is, I think, the perfect synergy between new media and new age, because this is about documenting in a digital format, in a visual format, almost a very like kind of, it's literally a selfie. It's a photo of you.
And we'll discuss more about the Radiant Human Project and the Oricam 6000 in a little bit. But what was your first experience with auras and energy?
My first experience with auras and energy, I think, really happened from the get-go with the parents that I have. My mother is an incredible painter. She is a visionary painter, which means she kind of goes through meditations and visions and paints about these kind of key experiences or archetypes or, for lack of a better term, teachings, let's say, that she receives and paints about it. So her her paintings, if you look up her work, it's Maria Michaelis is her name. And they are beautiful, beautiful, colorful paintings. And the majority of subjects in these paintings have auras. So as a child, I was, very aware of what an aura was, both visually and I would say physically. We were very energetically sensitive people. So if it wasn't in our vocabulary, it was definitely in our energetic awareness. With my upbringing. When I was 14, I picked up a book of hers, changed my life. I love this book. I still recommend it even to this day. It's Barbara Brennan's Hands of Light, which I'm sure a lot of your audience is familiar with. What I loved about her book was that she was very logical. I was kind of a little bit turned off by the woo-woo aspect of a lot of my parents' friends. And so what I found refreshing was that Barbara Brennan really explained things. I mean, she's a physicist, so she explained things in really logical terms that I could really wrap my head around. And when I was 15, I enrolled in the Santa Barbara School of Intuitive Massage, which also really dove deep into not only the physical body, but the energetic body as well.
And what quantum physics has taught us in the last couple of years is that, yes, the body is a producer of photons.
Yes, absolutely.
And so they're giving justification to everything we're talking about, scientific justification.
It's exciting.
It's really exciting time. Absolutely. So you touched upon the Radiant Human Project. Tell us about the foundation of that project. How did you get that started?
Well, I got laid off. That was, kind of a shocker at first, but it really was the best thing that could have ever happened for me. I really did a Hail Mary. I mean, I didn't have a lot of money, but I put all of it into this camera, and I was really just enamored by it. I was really curious and really kind of maybe naive. Maybe that's what it is. But I think, sometimes you have to be naive to take a chance. And I did. And I'm really glad I did.
So tell us about the Auracam 6000. How did you first learn about it?
So we talk about the beginning, right? I was laid off, and I had this idea of starting a market. Actually, I wanted to rent a large enough space, like a warehouse, and subdivide it into really small micro storefronts. Like I'm talking about 50 square feet, 100 square feet, just to give people, a start. And I lived in Portland, Oregon at the time. And if you're familiar with Portland, Oregon, it's got a really strong DIY culture. A lot of people make their living through platforms like Etsy, where they hand make wallets or hand make, anything from, tomato cages to, cocktail shakers. It could be really anything. And so what I thought was really surprising was that in Portland, Oregon, there was no place for that to exist. There was an online platform for it to digitally exist, but there was no physical, tangible space. And so that was my idea. And I went to New York to have some meetings with some investors, and also to check out some of the DIY makers that were out in Brooklyn. And my friends took me to a really funky crystal shop named named Magic Jewelry in Chinatown. And that's where I had my first aura photograph. And I was so changed by that experience that I completely changed my business model.
Wow. So basically you took an entrepreneurial approach to this, and then had that experience, which changed everything for you.
Yeah, it really challenged a lot of it. I mean, talk about your inner critic, right? My inner critic bell was ringing pretty loud. I had a very strong compass. I'm grateful to my parents for instilling in me a very strong internal compass where I feel like I know what is right for me. And it was very strong that this was the way that I needed to go, that a market could exist. Somebody else can easily make a market, but not too many people can pick up an aura camera and offer this to the world. So I was changed.
So you had that picture taken, and what did you see?
I saw a muddy, dark red aura, which is not what you want to see at all. And the woman told me that I was energetically fatigued, which was very true. I was, in fact, hungover. And that created such an interesting tension for me because with my upbringing that I had and kind of how I saw myself, I was really expecting to see, a more of a colorful aura. I really wanted a rainbow or like some deep indigo or, purple would be nice. I knew I was a unique, beautiful snowflake, but seeing this dark, chunky red aura looking back at me was like such a surprise, but also not, because I was comfortable in the moment explaining to my friends that I was hungover. However, I did not like seeing a photograph of myself in spiritual context showing me that I was hungover. So this created the tension of truth that totally transformed me in the sense that I knew it was real. Otherwise, it would have given me what I wanted and I would have been happy with it and walked away. But it gave me the truth. And that is something that is, priceless.
Absolutely. And how did you acquire your first camera?
I drove to Guy Coggin's house.
Wow.
Yeah, he's great.
Wow, that's wonderful. Was he impressed with your forthrightness?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe he was. I don't want to speak for him, but yeah, I think he was a little bit curious seeing someone like me just walking up on his porch asking to buy a camera.
That's wonderful. My guest, Christina Lonsdale. We're talking about her new book, Radiant Human, Discover the Connection Between Color, Identity, and Energy. Christina, please tell our listeners where they can get the book and find out more about you.
You can find my book on Amazon. Just type in Radiant Human and you'll find it. You can also follow me on my Instagram, which is radianthuman_. And you can keep track of my tour dates on my website, which is radianthuman.com.
And we'll be back with more of Christina after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute? When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
COVID-19 vaccines are starting to become available across the country. Now is the time to get informed. Get the latest information at getvaccineanswers.org. It's up to you. A message brought to you by the Ad Council and the CDC.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Christina Lonsdale. We're talking about her new book, Radiant Human, Discover the Connection Between Color, Identity, and Energy. So you had this entrepreneurial drive. You were looking for something, and you found the Auracam 6000, and you went up to the inventor and you bought one, and then you also use a portable dome in your work. Why?
I think really what it was is my own awkwardness, to be honest. I don't like it when other people are watching me pose to get my photo taken. So I just assumed that would be the case for other people. And I wanted to create a safe space, let's say. I really believe in the tenderness that happens when you are, looking into yourself in a deeper way. And I wanted to protect that moment for people. I wanted there to be almost like a suspended moment in time for them to really look at themselves in a new way. And that's what you'll find when you walk into this dome. It is white on the outside and completely black on the inside. It's black carpet, black cords, everything is black except for the camera. So it's this kind of suspended, almost matrix kind of feeling when you get in and you're interacting with yourself in a way, because the camera has a reflective surface on it. So as you're taking your photo, you're really looking into a mirror. You're looking back at yourself as this photo is happening. And I think now is probably a good time to kind of explain a little bit more about how this camera works. It uses 2 hand sensors that identify your body's vibrational frequency. And through the algorithm that I spoke about earlier, it matches that wavelength to a color, and that color comes out as a second exposure. Now, this camera uses a really beautiful film. It's sadly been discontinued. There's no more film left, although I was able to acquire some of it before it went completely extinct. And this film takes about a minute to develop. It's a FPC 100 film for film buffs out there. It's the kind of original peel back Polaroid film that a land camera uses. And what happens there is you kind of exit the dome and the photo starts developing. And then I get the opportunity to kind of share with them what their photo means, how the subtleties of the colors relate to each other. Very similar to the subtleties of energy, how the subtleties of energy work together, and that's it. And then the person walks away. But because that dome offers that space, I really feel like it is making space and giving space for not only me but the subject themselves to kind of take a break from the rest of the world and just be suspended in nothing.
So it's kind of like a personal energy observatory.
Absolutely. Totally.
That's wonderful.
That's a great way to put it.
That's wonderful. Does it take you a lot of work to break it down and put it back together again?
45 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad.
That's it.
Not bad. That's wonderful.
Yeah, not bad.
You've created more than 45,000 aura portraits since starting the project. Has the technique, the technology, and your interpretation changed since the genesis?
I don't necessarily think it has changed. I would say it has evolved. I think any artist should evolve. So as I have photographed more people and learned more, I have gained a deeper understanding and awareness of why things are the way that they are. For example, green is a really interesting color for me because for the most part, a lot of the similarities that I found with how people identify with the colors, they align for the most part with the chakras and what those chakras represent, except for green. I was really surprised that, the green heart chakra is known for healing. It's known for love. It's known for representing, growth and calm. And what I've noticed with the people that photograph with green, they don't necessarily show those qualities. What they do show is they are very focused on a goal. They are very focused on overcoming obstacles, I would say is a good way to put it. And so I kind of associated it more with the color psychology around green, of being associated with nature and being associated with kind of more of the growth that happens with nature. And so what surprised me is I recently watched Rocky for the first time. And are you familiar with the movie Rocky?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. It seems like the whole world is familiar with the movie Rocky, and I missed out on it. And I just recently had seen it. And I was so impacted by the level of heart chakra and green energy that was coming out of this movie. And I know a couple of friends that are going through their own healing path. And it seems a lot more like Rocky than like a kumbaya moment, if that makes sense. And so it was really my understanding of green energy that kind of deepened with this level of awareness through Rocky. I know this sounds cheesy, but it's tough stuff. The heart is strong. The heart is so, it is the underdog. It's in there deep with its fists up. It's not like this gentle, like kind of, it can be gentle and it's beautiful and strong in that gentle way. But what I've noticed for the most part with the people that I photograph with that show with green, they are the rocky heart of that energy. They represent that.
Does that also include issues with self-worth?
It can, definitely. And that, I think, really plays into our conversation around subtleties before. What I've noticed is that the saturation of color that shows up in these photos really represent the healthy aspect or the unhealthy aspect of each color. There's no hierarchy of color. There's no best color to have. Every color has a mixed bag. And you can really tell where somebody is based on the hue and saturation of the color.
Now, in Radiant Human, you offer an energy distribution map. How is this map laid out, and what do the different sections represent?
So what's interesting about this and where aura photography differs than, let's say, how a clairvoyant like Barbara Brennan sees auras is that this camera doesn't see your aura. It is translating your wavelength of energy into an aura. So it's distributing color on these photographs in a very kind of specific way. Everything above your head represents your mental state. Everything in the lower left-hand corner represents your internal state. Everything in the lower right-hand corner represents your external state.
And then by looking at those photos in those various areas, you can do the analysis and interpretation for the folks who come to you. Exactly.
And now that the book is out, people can do that for themselves.
Right, absolutely. Now, you had mentioned red and green. What are the other colors in the visual spectrum that manifest in this photography?
The other colors?
Yes.
Oh, there's so many. There are yellow, although what I've seen is that yellow usually shows up with tan. And I think this is a really beautiful study of just humanity in itself. Yellow represents complete inhibition. This is a coloration that is about joy. It's about spontaneity. It is also the procrastinator. It is the, because it doesn't really want to spend time on boring stuff. It wants to have fun. What usually shows up with yellow is tan, which is all about discipline. It's about bedtime schedule. It's about homework. It's about paying your bills. It's about getting to work on time. It's about structure. So what's interesting is that both of those energies usually show up in certain forms for some people. But it's almost a one side of the coin kind of thing, or two. You get what I'm saying?
And some of the other colors.
Well, there is indigo, there's purple, there's dusty rose is one of my favorites to see. What's interesting about dusty rose is that I have not seen this color in either of the lower corners. It only shows up as a mental state. And dusty rose is, because of that, I've determined that dusty rose really represents a almost kind of mental moment for people that represents being kind of undecided. There's a woman that I photographed that had dusty rose, and she was waiting to hear back from the U.S. government if she was going to get deported or not. There was a couple that I photographed that had dusty rose, and both of them were on a Tinder date. There was another person that I photographed with dusty rose, and they were waiting to hear back from the bank if he was going to get approved on a business loan. So there was just, a lot of different scenarios that all equal to the same frequency. And I think that's what's so interesting, is that this is a way to conceptualize it, but also make it tangible and physical for people to relate to in that way.
You had mentioned indigo, and there are those who say that children, especially who have demonstrated the ability to have clairvoyance, clairaudience, any of those senses, that they are indigo children. Do you find that people who are sensitive to energy show up as indigo?
Absolutely. And there's a lot that, there's a lot that comes with indigos. There's, because they are so energetically sensitive, and we are in such a saturated time right now in the information age, that it's very important for energetically sensitive people to create those boundaries to protect themselves. Because what I've seen happen is that they get overloaded and they don't know how to kind of energetically correct or align. So they usually find ways to like escapism. So either like being, addicted to your phone, being addicted to TV, being addicted in other ways usually shows up as escapism, or the internet, I think also, because it's so hard to energetically deal if you don't have the right structure, if you don't have the right boundaries set in place.
Absolutely. And one of my personal life lessons that only was resolved a couple of years ago was the understanding that I have the right to put up boundaries. And as an empath, the ability to say no lovingly and compassionately, it was so hard for me to do, but I learned how to do it.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing too, is that, and this is what I found true for indigos, is that because I call them conduits, and empaths is the same word, conduit, empath. You feel your surroundings, you feel the person next to you in such a deeper way than most people do. And so the last thing you want to do is disappoint that person. The last thing you want to do is hurt that person, because I mean, it's self-serving in some ways because you feel that too, but it's also really loving in the way because you are concerned about their feelings. But it's one of those things where you're actually doing yourself and them a favor by creating those boundaries in a loving way, of course. Because it saves both of you the drag down the road, let's say.
Absolutely. There was a quote that someone had, which I frequently fall back on, which is, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah, no is a complete sentence. And it's a favor.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. In addition to colors, do the shapes play a part in the analysis?
I wouldn't say shape, but I would say texture. Yes. Usually if it's more textured color, there's more chunky qualities to it, which means there's more what I call bruising, which has more of the negative aspects of the color. Maybe negative isn't the right way to put it, but just say like in alignment, out of alignment. That's a better way to put it.
And with the onset of the pandemic and all of the horrible, really, things that happened during 2020 and have started getting better, have you seen a lot of fear in the photographs?
I haven't been photographing. I took a message from the universe and was shut down. The last thing I wanted to do was spread anything. So I packed up shop and I haven't been out.
Wonderful and conscientious and compassionate view. Thank you for doing that. But prior to that, does fear manifest in those photographs?
I think fear manifests in all of us in certain ways. I think that we all hold fear differently. So it really just depends on the subtleties of color that show up in these photographs to show me how that fear is being held. Is
there a color of fear?
No.
So how would you see fear then in terms of what shows up in the photograph?
The texture of the photo. So for example, we spoke of green, right? A lot of the people that photograph with green are very focused on a goal. They're focused on an end result. And if there is a dark, muddy green in there, then I can see there's more fear involved, fear of failure, self-criticism, things like that.
And is there a color for love?
That's the same thing. Love shows itself in many ways. Blue is a beautiful example of that. Blue is very nurturing. It's very giving. When it's deep and rich, it borders on indigo. So it's very feeling. So there's that connection. There's that higher plane of kind of really bright, beautiful, kind of almost Caribbean blue. That is more kind of high vibe connection. that I've seen. But then there's also purple, and there's the ideology around love. There's the being seen in a way, or letting your vision being seen, that I also think is love. It's a part of love. And then there's also red. A nice, beautiful, rich ruby red is the physical tangibility of love. It's love in action. And so when you have combinations like a nice, rich ruby red with a beautiful kind of deep magenta purple, then you're seeing that somebody is actually putting, their belief, their faith, their perspective in physical form, in love in action. So I think that is also something that I've seen to be true.
Love in action, something that this world can use. My guest, Christina Lonsdale, her book, Radiant Human, Discover the Connection Between Color, Identity, and Energy. We'll be back with more of Christina after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network. Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, this is Bill Maher. I can find humor in almost anything, but one thing I never laugh about is cruelty to animals. If you don't get the joke either, write People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, 501 Front Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23510.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
I'm Kathy Williams, host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life radio show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. On the show, we explore living abundantly in every area of your life. Ways to let go of limiting patterns and beliefs and to step into the flow of creativity and possibility, knowing you are supported by the universe.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Christina Lonsdale. We're talking about her book, Radiant Human. And Christina, you had a comment about something that we shared at the end of the last segment.
Yeah, I didn't want to take credit for such a beautiful statement. Love in action was actually from Deepak Chopra. I really resonated with what he said. So sometimes it just pops out.
Absolutely. Love in action, compassion in action. It's something that our world needs right now from everyone. And kindness, radical kindness and radical compassion is what I've been advocating for the last year. So absolutely. So you share several case studies in Radiant Human. Would you share one of those with us?
Oh, yeah. I call them visual diaries. So one of the exciting things about this project is that I have been photographing the same people for the last 5, almost 6 years now. And I've found that these are ways to photograph key moments in people's lives. And there's a whole segment of the book which offers, by the generosity of my community, some really personal stories. One comes to mind, a beautiful couple named the Schweitzers. They came in. They have been photographed every year for the last 5 years. And I have photographed, them at their at their height of being playful and traveling and being in love and just really enjoying just kind of like seeing what was next for their careers. And then I was able to also photograph them a year later where their careers were thriving. They took a next step. And then I also, a year later was so shocked to see that one of them was dealing with an ailment where they didn't know what was going on. They kept going to a lot of different doctors. They had no answers. So it was the uncertainty. So we photographed that. And I think that there, in the book, I kind of explain something that I mention a lot, which is energetic landmarks. Through photography, we use photography in two ways. One, to share an experience, and the other is to reflect back on it. And I felt like this was such a meaningful moment to capture for not only me, but for them, because how else can you document a moment like that? How else can you document like this time or this uncertainty or this moment, and then I was so thrilled to see them come back to me again a year later. They found out what was going on. They're making lifestyle adjustments. And then the next year from there, they come back in, they're healthy, they're even pregnant and expecting a baby. So it was, I feel like, such an amazing way to tell a story through a visual context.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. We had talked briefly about the correspondence between what shows up in your photos and chakras. You had mentioned that green was the one that seemed to be not exactly right in conjunction with what we think of the heart chakra.
Right.
What are some of the other colors, chakra related, that really come through?
Red, I would say. Yeah, red is very very tangible, very physical. It deals with manifestation. So anybody kind of going through a change is dealing with what is manifesting for them. And also the reality of that. There is a beautiful philosopher, his name escapes me right now, but he talks about the real. And I feel like the real is very red energy. Because even if people are not going through a change, granted, like about 80% of the people that photograph with red are going through a change, but that 20% that show up, when I ask them more questions about themselves, their life, their personality, I find that they are very realistic people that are kind of like proof is in the pudding kind of people. And so what's interesting is I find that it's the same frequency, right? It's like either people are going through a life change where they need to get real, or you just are real and you are just what is physical, tangible in my hands is what is real, is that person. And I feel like that's a very hard root chakra.
And people who work with the throat chakra, the blue, does that show up?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's all about communication. It's all about connection. It's all about, a lot of the people that I photograph with blue are very, either very involved in their family, they're involved in community. They are, almost, like I said, there's no hierarchical color. There's no good, there's no bad. It's just a mixed bag. Oftentimes what I find is the challenge for blues is saying no. We spoke about saying no before. And I feel like that is also a very throat chakra kind of challenge for people.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of listeners who are in various energy healing professions and other healing professions. How do they manifest in the photos?
I see more blue among healers than I see green, although I have seen a combination of both. So both are true. And purple too, I have to say. A lot of purple comes through the dome because I think that's just the type of people that are not only attracted to aura photography, but also attracted to alternative, medicines like most healers are.
Absolutely. How does grief manifest in the aura?
Wow, cool question. Again, I think you're hitting on some really like key feelings, which is, love, fear, grief. Those are very, very big energetic bombs that someone can go through. And I think that we hold those in different ways. But for the most part, you could do a deep, muddy red or a deep, muddy blue. Yeah.
And that shows up for people who are grieving.
Yeah. And also I will say also, it depends how you grieve. Some people wear their grief outwardly. Some people hold it in. So it can show up in a way where there will be no color in the lower right-hand corner, which means that they are kind of removing their energy from their outer kind of sphere, if you will.
We talked about the colors of love. Are there colors for a broken heart?
Yes and no. I think it just depends on the individual and how they are being almost pushed by that emotion. Usually red will show up because it's a change that they're not ready for.
Mm. Have any of the photographs that you've taken surprised you?
Yeah, a lot of them. I don't see auras, so it's one of those things where it's so fun. It feels like Christmas morning every time I open a photograph, because it's one of those things where it's like, wow, I've interacted with you. I'm so curious to see what comes through this. And so I think genuinely every photograph is, a true surprise. I have photographed myself, and I feel like, because I know myself, I think that there's those moments where I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, this is staring back at me, and I think that's really where the zing of truth kind of comes in. It's funny because I photograph pretty regularly. I gave you a couple of photographs to show you kind of how the energy moves around, and you can not only have one photo, or not only one color, but several colors that can be consistent for you. And that I think is so exciting. That's what I call an energetic identity, because then when you get another photo and it's kind of off, you can see where the off part is. So for example, we were talking about green earlier. If you photograph regularly with green and all of a sudden you're popping off with, blue or orange or red, then you're a green energy person going through a red experience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So for me, I was, I am pretty generally blue, green, purple combo. That's my energetic identity. And there was a day that was particularly crazy. And I had a leak in my roof and it flooded my apartments. And I was doing an installation with a fashion designer that I was really looked up to. And it was Fashion Week in New York City. So, there was a lot of pressure to look cute, and I like looking cute, but it's really hard to look cute when your bathroom is flooding your apartment. And I was dealing with this kind of moment, and I was like, oh my God, I have to photograph myself and see what this looks like. And I photographed myself and I was a rainbow, and I'd never been a rainbow before. Wow. And rainbows, contrary to popular belief, rainbows are not necessarily the best experience to go through. I've found personally is usually it means that you're energetically in kind of like a supernova, if you will, where like a lot of things are going on and you might just kind of go into energetic burnout. So I was like, oh boy, like this is like definitely kind of capturing my energetic moment is this rainbow. There's just like so much being thrown at me. And then 3 days later, I found out I was pregnant. Mm. So there was that on top of it as well. And so I have that photo with me still. And it's just a great, it's not only, it wasn't a surprise as I was going through it, but it's also like a really beautiful surprise in that sense where I feel like it's that, reveal photo.
That leads to
I've never been a rainbow since.
That leads to an interesting question. And if a woman possibly is pregnant, doesn't know that she's pregnant or is not showing, does that show up?
No, there's no way that people are going to be coming to me getting a photograph and I'm going to tell them they're pregnant. that I'm going to leave to the sticks at the CVS. So I don't think that the camera is going to capture that. Although I have seen red show up quite often for women that are pregnant.
And there are many of us in our senior years, and I'll put it that way very politely. Does the aura change as we grow older?
Oh, the aura changes all the time. Yeah, totally. What I thought was so fascinating is like reading my mom's kind of like vibey aura books and reading my own vibey aura books. I was really like there's a lot that kind of points to this concept of you are just one aura, like you are a yellow aura person, and that's just who you are. But I've found through this project that we are changing all the time, that the aura is a constant live feed of what is happening for you internally. So what I would think is maybe that would calm down a little bit as you're getting older, but it really just has a lot to do with how you are reacting to this phase of your life. I've seen some elders that are a lot more active than they used to because they just don't care. They don't care what other people think anymore. So they're, getting on a Segway. They bought themselves a boat. They are traveling more. It just depends on the person, how they are approaching this phase of their life.
Her name is Christina Lonsdale. Her book is called Radiant Human, Discover the Connection Between Color, Identity, and Energy. Christina, one more time, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you.
Well, you can find out more about me on my website, which is radianthuman.com. And you can follow my Instagram, which is @radianthuman_. And my book is being held at all major book retailers. So Barnes & Noble, Amazon, you name it.
Christina, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this amazing work that you do.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.